So I've decided, folks, as you see from the description for this video, I've decided to take one for the team so you don't have to. Let's talk about the Munsters. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Movie Emporium's movie review of The Munsters, the new reimagining directed by Rob Zombie. Okay, so Rob Zombie's The Munsters, the greatest trailer ever created that everybody wants to see, I guarantee you, and they want to see this review. The Munsters is, of course, a movie that's directed by Rob Zombie. It's a prequel to the original TV series, and actually sees not only the creation of Herman Munster, who's played by Jeff Dean Phillips, but it also sees kind of the relationship that forms between, of course, Lily Munster, who is played by Sheri Zombie, Herman Munster, and kind of the cranky old man that is the Count, who's played by Roebuck. And in the process, it's also a story about trying to take over the castle that the Count owns by his ex-wife and the dog boy, or whatever his name is. So with that said, it eventually shows you how they get to Mockingbird Lane in Los Angeles and the kind of crazy world that is the Munsters. So that's kind of the story. It's how they get to Mockingbird Lane, how they became a couple, and the world that inhabits this world that, of course, Rob Zombie is a huge fan of. So there you go. That's the movie. It's creation of Herman Munster, the relationship, and all those good things that come into a Rob Zombie movie that is the, of course, take on the Munsters franchise. Okay, so the Munsters is a pretty popular franchise, to be fairly honest. It's a franchise that's very influential. If you look in like the gothic space or the comedic horror space, in a lot of respects, it's up there with the Addams Family. Though the Addams Family is maybe a little bit more popular, the Munsters has very much that same comedic timing. It has Fred Gwynne, who played Herman Munster, who did a really nice job, very funny in the role. It was of its time, but it was very campy, but also very fun. So the fact that Rob Zombie was doing this and is such a huge fan of the Munsters is not really that surprising, because if you look at his films, they're very horror in their aspect, but they are also campy in a lot of aspects. They're not good films, but they have, they have some moments where they're really enjoyable. But I really think that I really believe that Rob Zombie could actually make a decent Munsters movie, because, he's given a decent budget. He'll bring in some director of photography, a cinematographer, who'll bring in people that he kind of works with to kind of make this movie somewhat decently produced. Maybe not the greatest movie in the world, but I at least had hope for it. And then the trailer came out. And yeah, it all fell apart. we all admit it's one of the worst trailers ever put out ever in the history of trailers. It looked bad. It looked like a student film movie. There was nothing about it. It tried to be like really funny, but it wasn't funny. And just some of the shots in this movie were just like, what are they thinking? And the only thing that had any redeeming value was Daniel Roebuck as the Count, which actually looked like the Count. He actually looked like he was portraying the Count pretty nicely. And as much as I don't understand why Sheri Zombie, even though she's the wife of Rob Zombie, why she's in it like as the main actress in this movie, I don't know. It really is kind of him just putting his wife in the movie. And then, of course, Jeff Dean Phillips, I don't really know much about, or maybe I do, I just can't remember. But it's pretty safe to say, and we all can say, that this movie was probably going to be on a lot of people's worst of the year list, just from the trailer alone. And before I get to my honest review of this movie, I can, like I said, I can definitely understand why, but I wanted to watch this movie. I wanted to get my feel and take of this movie. If maybe the feature-length version of this movie would be, it would deal with the campiness nature, which is what the Munsters are a little bit. But I maybe felt like maybe it could be something a little measurable in its kind of portrayal of the Munsters. And so that's when I get to my honest review. And I have to say this as a positive. It is definitely not the worst Rob Zombie film I've ever seen in my entire life. It's a film that is trying. He's really putting his heart and soul into this movie. He really loves these characters. I think Daniel Roebuck is actually pretty good as the Count. I think Sheri Zombie is not bad as Lily Munster. I think Jeffrey Dean Phillips is a whole completely different story. But there is things in this that will make this movie a midnight movie, that will make this, a cult classic in a lot of respects, because in the process, it is definitely trying to be a Munsters movie. It is definitely trying its hardest to be campy and silly and over the top and goofy. But that's all of the positives I can really say about the movie. It's a pretty awful movie. It's really bad. And when I say it's good for a Rob Zombie movie, that's not saying very much, because outside of like The Devil's Rejects, there isn't a single movie in his repertoire, and I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for this, that is good. Like Three from Hell was an awful movie, and I like Devil's Rejects, and I kind of, House of a Thousand Corpses is fine for what it's worth, but it's a movie that clearly it takes a real talent to do comedy, to be fairly honest. And this is written by Rob Zombie, and there are so many jokes, especially with the Herman Munster character, that are childish and stupid and are almost borderline insulting of your intelligence. This is a movie that he's brought to life, and he wants to be a star, and like the way he kind of goes around the world. There's a point where he makes making jokes and he's the only one laughing, and like Jeff Dean Phillips' voice is so grating. He feels like his balls haven't dropped from his, whatever, but it's just really bad. Like there are so many moments. Like there's points where, have you ever seen like a Rob Zombie music video when he kind of superimposes his like very simple background with some really interesting colors and stuff like that? There's a lot of that in there, which is kind of interesting and neat to kind of overhype the effects of the comedy in this movie. The cinematographer of this movie, I feel embarrassed for, and I feel kind of embarrassed for Rob Zombie, because as hard as they tried, the shots in this movie, like the scenes in this movie are so low grade budget for a $60 million movie that I couldn't believe what I was watching. There are characters that, of course, are from the TV show that come in this, that are like played for like goofy laughs, and there's points in this where it's actually, you start questioning whether this is for children or not. Who is this movie for, to be fairly honest? And that's what this movie's whole problem is. It's just it's trying to be so family friendly, but be so Rob Zombie that it has an identity crisis. And on top of that, the dialogue is so cringeworthy and so bad, and it's just, oh man, the music is trying to be like that silly TV style music, and some points it works, some points it doesn't. Like this movie feels and looks like really cheaply done. Set pieces look really cheap. The visual effects work looks really cheap. This apparently was filmed in, I think, Hungary or something like that. That's fine, but it really feels like that's where they were trying to spend as much money as they could. And this isn't really surprising to anyone who's watching this review that I'm really complaining about this stuff. But there's also like jokes where there's like cash loan stuff, because this takes place in Transylvania, but there's like cash loans if you go to jail signs everywhere, and there's like the Count is reading a thing called Playghoul, which is of course Playboy in a lot of respects, and like I said, a lot of the humor doesn't land, and it's an absolutely horrendous movie in a lot of respects, and I didn't expect it to be good, but I didn't expect it to be so bad that I'd be like, I guess it could be a cult classic in a lot of respects. And like I said, I know Rob Zombie's trying, and he's trying his hardest with these films, and I know he loves this kind of genre, but the man either needs to stop making films, or he needs to figure a way for him to just write the movies and let someone else direct it. And unfortunately, that's never going to happen because he has such a huge fan base. And I love White Zombie, and I love Rob Zombie's music. And, there's points in here where he definitely puts his aesthetic when it comes to like, hardcore metal or rock, or, he does some rave music, which is really weird. And like, there's some stuff in here, it's just, you question what they were thinking. And it's just, I don't know. I really just felt this movie was just absolutely completely awful. And like I said, when it comes down to it, the people that really like these trashy, very stupid, very kind of low grade CD level type movies are really going to enjoy it and find cult classic style in it. But another point I have to make is, and I call him Dean, but I apologize, but Jeff Daniel Phillips is playing Herman Munster, and actually it's an insult to Fred Gwynne as Herman Munster. I know they're trying to do their own thing, but it's grating. It makes the character look like an absolute buffoon, which maybe that's what they're going for. I don't know, but he is trying so hard to be that, lovable, but funny, but, campy character. And it just absolutely doesn't work. It actually takes the movie into some really strange and weird, awful territory. And I don't know. It's really difficult to just want to bag on this movie because we all knew it was going to be pretty terrible. But I wanted to do this review because I wanted to see if at least Rob Zombie in his final form of doing this movie would actually deliver something at least campy enough. But I can't even do that. I mean, everything you see in the trailer is exactly the representation of the movie itself. And maybe this film would have worked in black and white. Maybe there'll be a black and white version that comes out. But in the end, this is not a good movie. It's a terrible movie. It's an absolutely atrocious movie, and I don't recommend it for anyone outside of like the zombie fans or somebody who really loves these like really crappy type films. But you're not gonna get anything out of this. It's gonna be on Netflix, and it's gonna be a movie that people question why Universal paid as much as they did, and Universal's even questioning why they paid as much as they did for something so low grade and terrible. So in the end, This is an awful film. It's one of the worst of the year, but I think it will find cult classic status at some point. And definitely go in knowing that if you expected the worst, you're going to get even worse. So there you go. Anyways, with that said, that is my take on Rob Zombie's The Munsters. I could I go on for days and talk about each individual scene in this movie. So with that said, that is my take of this movie. Thank you so much for watching. Comments below. Are you happy that I watched this so you don't have to? Are you going to see this movie because you don't believe me? What is your overall take? So let me know in the comments. But otherwise, if you like what you see on this video, awesome. Hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell. Top to find what's coming next. If you like these videos, awesome. Hit that like button. And as always, we'll see you guys on the next, hopefully better video. Peace out, guys.